Roanoke, The Lost Colony by Brooke Coleman. The New World. After Christopher Columbus brought news of the New World back to Europe in 1492, a race started among the nations of Europe. France, Spain, England, and other nations sent explorers to the New World, later called America. They hoped to get gold for their countries. England's Queen Elizabeth wanted more than gold. She wanted an English colony in America. In 1584, she sent Sir Walter Raleigh a patent which gave him the right to claim land for England. His first claim was for a large part of the East Coast in America. He called that land Virginia. Raleigh returned to England to report on the new land. A friendly local Indian named Manteo agreed to come to England too. Manteo, an Indian from America, returned to England with the explorers. Many people in England, including the Queen, were eager to meet Native Americans. Manteo enjoyed visiting England and learned to speak English quickly. The first try at starting a colony. Sir Walter Raleigh sent his cousin, Sir Richard Grenville, a famous naval commander, to America in 1585. Grenville's job was to find a good place for English settlers to live. Manteo, the helpful Indian Raleigh had met on the first expedition, traveled with Grenville. Manteo helped pick Roanoke Island as the place for the English colony. The soil was not the best for growing crops, but Roanoke was close to Manteo and his family and his friendly tribe of the Croatian Indians, who lived on a nearby island. In 1585, at the time of the second expedition, Grenville left about 100 men, including artist John White, to start the English colony at Roanoke. Grenville returned to England. Hard times in Roanoke. The Roanoke settlers were soldiers, not farmers. Even with the help from Manteo and his family, they could not grow all the food they needed. Other nearby tribes didn't trust the settlers. Without enough help to grow food, the settlers had to struggle to survive. Founding an English colony in America began to seem like a bad idea. When the great English navigator Sir Francis Drake visited Roanoke during a voyage only a few months later, the soldiers decided to go back to England with him. Sir Walter Raleigh realized that one of the reasons the first colony failed was that the men missed their families. On the next trip, he made sure women and children went along. Another try. A few brave and hopeful people in England still thought America would be a wonderful place to start a colony. This next attempt would be different. For the first time, whole families, not just soldiers or explorers, went to live in America. In May 1587, a group of 114 men, women, and children went to America. They left behind friends and many of their belongings. Some people went because they couldn't find work in England. Others went to America in hopes of starting businesses or farms that could make them rich. In the 16th century, ships didn't have bunks or cabins, so passengers rolled up in blankets and slept on deck. During storms, they had to stay below deck where there were no toilets. Settling in. The second group of English settlers arrived in Roanoke in July 1587. John White, the artist, was the group's leader. He was going to be the colony's new governor. Soon afterward, Virginia Dare was born. She was the first English person born in America. Her parents named her after the new place that had become their home, but many colonists thought that Virginia didn't feel like home. They didn't have enough supplies to build the houses or grow the crops they knew they would need that winter. They asked their governor, John White, to return to England for seeds, clothing, and tools. White didn't want to leave Virginia Dare, who was his granddaughter, and the other colonists. He agreed to go, but hoped to be back soon. White is delayed. In 1587, John White returned to England and gathered food, clothing, and tools to take back to the colonists in Roanoke. He even found 12 more colonists who wanted to go to America. Some of them were related to people already in Roanoke. Unfortunately, when White's ship was sailing back to America, a French ship attacked it and stole all the supplies. White had to go back to England and try again. Trapped by war. In 1588, it had been almost a year since John White had left the colonists on Roanoke Island. He probably hoped that Manteo was helping them get through the winter without being too cold, afraid, and hungry. Still, more time would go by before he could return to Roanoke. England went to war with Spain, and all of England's ships were needed to fight. White couldn't get back to Roanoke until the war ended. He was very worried about the colonists. White finally made it back to Roanoke in 1590. Colonists are gone. When John White returned to Roanoke, he found a very unsettling sight. The town where the colonists had lived was deserted. Everyone was gone. White couldn't tell if the colonists had moved with all their things to a better place, or whether they had been killed by Indians, disease, or the cold. The only message they left was the word Croatian carved on a tree. John White tried to look for them on a nearby Croatian island, but couldn't get there because of a terrible storm. He never made it to the island. He returned to England and never saw his family again. When White came back to Roanoke, he was glad to see smoke from the colonists' cooking fires. After landing, he saw that the smoke came instead from British fires brush fires started by lightning. The mystery of the lost colony. What happened to America's first English colony? We will never know for sure. In the years to come, many explorers visited the islands of Roanoke and Croatian, but no one ever found the colonists. Some might even have decided to live with the Indians because they thought they had been abandoned. Others might have moved north in search of better land. If they did settle further north, they were probably killed by the Powhatan Indians or the severe weather. Some people believe that descendants of the lost colony of Roanoke are still alive today. They think the colonists were taken in by Manteo's tribe and family, the Croatian Indians. Perhaps the colonists married some of them and had children who grew up as American Indians. Roanoke remembered. The mystery of the lost colony has never been solved, but it has not been forgotten either. On Roanoke Island, off the coast of today's North Carolina, a play called The Lost Colony has been running for over 62 summers. The play is performed outdoors by a cast of over 100 people. The cast usually includes local residents, college students, and some professional actors. You can call 252-473-3414 in the May for tickets to a theatrical trip back in time to the Lost Colony.